Sounded like the right one.
Well, hello, hello. Hope everybody is doing well. Welcome to the April 20th edition of the Southern Fried DNN meetup. Today we're got quite a bit of people online here live, so it's really good to see everybody
Welcome
live
to
here, your faces. Let's see, we've got Ryan Moore, got Daniel Valadas, we got Jim Peterson, we got Joseph. I don't know how to say your last name. Daniel, how do you say his last name?
Joseph Okoye.
Okoye. Okay. Got Holly Martin, Steve Carpet, Catherine, Sebastian Leopold, Brad Mills. With this, we got Aaron, DDVA JP, whoever you are, welcome. And Mark Gilsing. Good to see everybody.
Oh, Mark came in. All right.
If you are joining after the fact and watching via YouTube, welcome there. Or if you're seeing us on southernfriedDNN.com, we do this every month, third Thursday of every month. We do alternate times. This is our month for doing it at an earlier time slot so that people in other time zones works a little better for them. So this is at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And if you do on the alternate months, we start at, what is it, 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time?
Yep,
Brian?
that's right.
Or Eastern Standard Time when the
6 to
time
8.
zones switch. So welcome. Hey Joseph, good to see you, man.
Howdy here.
Hey, Joe Craig.
So on this one, this is gonna be less of a presentation kind of format and a little bit more of a round robin and sharing of tools and utilities and things like that. So a few of us have a few items listed, but that being said, we're gonna kind of do it one at a time. A person shares something, then another person shares something, another person shares something. So if you do have something to share, just let us know in the chat or just pipe in via audio there and let us know, and we'll try to get you in the round robin queue there. Let's see, as far as announcements goes, let me start with DNN Connect, which is coming up in May, towards the end of May in Chambéry, Switzerland, going back to Chambéry. Woohoo! Yeah, it's a beautiful, this is actually a picture of the last event in Chambéry. I think that was, help me out here, those of you that were there, I think it was like 2018 maybe, could have been 2019, but I'd have to look and see. But it was a wonderful venue, going back to the same place. And I'm hoping we go to the mountaintop here again at that restaurant. That was beautiful. If you have not registered for that, it's not too late. You can go out here to dnn-connect.org and register for the event there. There's a link on the, if my mouse would start responding, there we go. You can just click on the banner here and here's some information about it to be able to register. If you're interested in sponsoring the event, you can do so by downloading this document. It's got quite a bit of information in there about sponsoring the event. These events that are in person aren't cheap to put together, so any help there from the community or your businesses or anything like that would be greatly appreciated. I know a few sponsors are actually in the meeting here. So to those of you that are sponsoring this event, thank you so much for doing that. Hope to see everybody there. I didn't think I was going to go this year, but we have been persuaded to go. So it's been really nice. And I think, let's see, Daniel Valadas, I think you're going as well. So there's a few from the States. I think Brian Dukes from the States is also going to be able to travel over. Brad, are you guys going, or who's going from your end?
I think we're sending Rory, purely because he's closest. But
there you go.
we'll see.
That's great.
And I think we're also sponsoring Easy DNN is going to come. So Demir and his brother are going to come.
Oh, fantastic. It'll be great. I've never met Demir in person. I've known him for many years and feel like I know him. I've never met him in person, so I'm looking forward to that.
It's a plug. We're also going to have him on coming up in June or July.
Nice.
Yeah, they've been doing some pretty cool stuff recently with ChatGPT, and we'll chat a little bit about ChatGPT a little bit later. So it'd be nice to have them on and share a little bit about what's going on in their commercial module space there. So yeah, check it out. It's not too late really to book flights and things like that. So if you're on the fence, let me encourage you to go to the side of the fence that is going to the event, because this is unlike any other DNN event there is. There's great technical content, but there's also a great social aspect to this whole visit. And, there's plenty of time. The sessions aren't going from, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. or something like that, crazy schedule. It's a nice pace of a few sessions during the day and then a break in the afternoon to kind of go and do some things, and then come back together in the evening and hang out, have a nice meal together. It's an all-inclusive kind of package too, so that may be something that you wouldn't expect, but for a ridiculously low amount of bucks there, you can get into this conference and have your, here it is. So the price includes 3 nights at the hotel, and it's a fabulous hotel, Hotel Swiss, and 2 days of the conference, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and drinks. And now I should say, when they say drinks, they really mean drinks. So, not only can you have your favorite water or, coffee or espresso or something like that, but if you like the stronger stuff, they have plenty of that as well. And it is fantastic to have that taken care of. And then also the area is just gorgeous, to visit and travel around a little bit and things like that. So if you haven't considered going, not too late. Register, hope to see you there. Let's see. Next that I had up for announcements is since the last time we met, DNN 9.11.2 was released. And this is actually a really good release because I feel like it kind of, so far, based on the feedback, it's been a stabilization. A lot of the little bugs that were in the 9.11.0 and 9.11.1 have been squashed. And the feedback has just been fantastic so far. Thanks to everybody that helped contribute to get that put out there. Daniel, thanks for all your work on getting the releases actually done, because he is the one that pushes the magic button to to release it. And so it's,
you press a button and all the release notes write themselves in front of you in human language.
And the assets get uploaded, and then all that good stuff.
One button.
It's been really fun recently, because now that 9.11 is out there and kind of have crossed the, and for those that don't know, that may be watching for the first time on something like this, but 9.11 for all practical purposes is kind of a major release, not really a minor release, even though semantically it is a minor release, but it is the first release where it is optional to automatically remove Telric and not have to go through the manual steps that we've had to pre 9.11. So from a security standpoint, it's really nice. And then also as a part of that Telric removal, a completely new resource manager is put in there. So it's had a few little bumpy spots at the beginning that we knew were going to be, nice to have, things that need to be fixed and ironed out. But for the most part, it has been really well received. We're getting a lot of good feedback from it.
From a weigh-in, just to throw out the thank yous there. Daniel Valadas has spent a lot of time on this updated file manager, and a lot of people have contributed. It's fast. It's beautiful. I think the very first glance at it, it was missing maybe 1 or 2 small elements that were necessary. It's beautiful now. I love using this far better than what we've been used to for so long. It's fantastic.
There's still like 2-3 small glitches which are not like major breakers. It's like sometimes you do something and you have to refresh the page and then it's fixed.
Exactly.
Which is, there's issues for it, and it's going to get improved. But yeah, it's a nice thing.
Very good. there's not a whole lot in this release other than, some of those maintenance items and a few enhancements to the resource manager. One of them was a height change that, thanks to Jeremy Ferentz for actually getting involved in doing a pull request there. So woohoo to noobs doing the pull request in the platform. It's really cool to see that. And let's see where the attention is kind of shifted now as far as the technology group goes. Mitchell Sellers and that team, shifting our thoughts more towards the version 10 release of DNN. So that does not mean that there won't be a future patch release of DNN Platform if something comes up that was unknown or something like that, or there may even be a minor release. I doubt it, but there could be. So it's not like that door is closed at this point, but the attention is really shifting. Anybody that's available for contributions and so forth to help towards it, we're really focusing the energies on those. So one plug real quick for Daniel Valadas' open coding sessions that he does on Saturdays, which are really good because we're kind of being intentional about, okay, now's a time slot where you could just show up and start working on things related to DNN. I mean, it doesn't have to be DNN Platform, but it could be something related to a community module or something like that. And you have other people there to share what you're trying to accomplish, any challenges as you might be having, and kind of learn from each other and help support each other. And a lot has been accomplished during those sessions. So looking forward to those continue going. Some of the highlights, and I don't want to go ahead, Daniel.
That happens on Discord. We have presence on Slack. We have presence on Discord, on Facebook, and if you go to the community site, which I believe you already have open somewhere, it's on the bottom of every page, the Discord link if you want to join the server. And then there's once you join, you're going to see an event. There's a couple of planned events, and that one happens every Saturday, 7 p.m.
Yep, Eastern time zone. Yeah.
Yeah, normal time zone. Yeah.
That's funny. So just a few of the things that have been discussed, and please do not misinterpret me by what I'm sharing here. It's not a commitment for any of these things. These are just things that are kind of at the top of the list to be looked at. So, you can get involved too, and help in some of these areas. But some of the things that are top on the list for version 10 as of recently discussed is really removing Telric from the actual core. So like with DNN 9.11. Whatever, you can actually automatically remove Telric, but it's still present in the core, code base. So this is an opportunity, and this is one of the reasons why 9.11 is not 10.0, so that in 10.0, we can actually remove these APIs that were marked as deprecated. And really remove Telric from the core so that when you do a clean install, you do not have, well, that's the way it is now. It's not there, but that they're still there, if that makes sense. They are optionally there. And let's see, then there's a ton of API work that needs to be done for removal of deprecated APIs, as well as like you may, if you're following some of the pull requests that have been made recently on the platform repo, there's a lot of work going on around the dependency injection. Brian Dukes is doing a fantastic job of trying to really fully embrace dependency injection in all various areas that's possible within DNN. So there's a ton of that coming in, and that really is a huge help for developers to be able to use dependency injection in these different areas. Bumping some of the technology minimums is one of the things on the list. Just it's time. We've been living in really old versions, and Microsoft will be sunsetting some of those. So just bumping up those minimum versions, not because DNN won't technically run on them, but because support is dropping from Microsoft. So there'll be some of that that you'll see in V10. One of the efforts is, and I've got a tab open here, if you've ever used PolyDeploy, which is a module that was built originally by Canteris, one of the partners in the ecosystem. They were at a point where they were having a hard time kind of maintaining that and moving it forward. So they actually turned that over to community ownership so that those that were interested in furthering that project could do so. Up until that point, several people had forked it and kind of improved it. So right now we're at a state where this repo, which is out on DNN community or here, is up to date, and there's kind of a code freeze put in place, if you will, because what we're trying to do now is pull in PolyDeploy into the platform itself. So there's a feature branch out on DNN Platform. If you're interested in that endeavor, all the client code part of it for this has been updated already and is merged in to that feature branch. And now there's a bit of work that's going to be done to rewrite the UI because it was written in AngularJS, which is Angular version 1, and we're up to like what, 20 now or something, or 18 or something like that. But if those of you that live in the Angular world know that the jump from Angular 1 to Angular 2 and on is a completely different, it's a rewrite. So we're wanting to remove the dependency on Angular altogether and rewrite it in using web components. So that'll be a fun thing as well. One last thing, there will be, you can expect a new theme to come into the version 10, but this is, will be something that's gonna, I don't want to say too much about the theme work just because it'll be a conversation, but we're really trying to remove any external dependencies. Right now, the theme that is the base theme in the system, Exilian, I believe, is Bootstrap based, and it's stuck on version 3 of Bootstrap. And just want to kind of move things forward and make it not dependent on a CSS framework. So that's kind of the goal of the theme for DNN 10. Also, it is kind of the face of DNN when you install it, right? What you see, how it looks and how it feels. It is time for an update. So if you have any feedback on design ideas and things like that, or content ideas for the templates, let me know, or anybody on the technology team, and we'll try to get those in the queue, for consideration for that. I feel like I talked a lot on that, but I wanted to give everybody at least a glimpse into what's at least being talked about for version 10. And again, no commitments on any of that stuff, but
yeah. So one thing that was not on your list, we will bring CSS variables as a first-class citizen for.
That's a very good point.
Harmonizing both themes and modules, so they can basically consume those brand colors or whatever in a fashion that we're not enforcing any sort of components or whatever. That's in the queue for DNN 10. And the only thing that we absolutely guarantee we need in 10 is killing the deprecated APIs and those updates, and all those feature things. They could come in 10.0. They could come in 10.1, they could come in 10.2 because they're not breaking things. So
yeah.
But if we can, time providing, would be cool to have all that.
Let's see. I wanted to just note a few things that I saw happening in the community as well. There are quite a few new releases of the community forums module out here. And if anybody knows who John Henley is, be sure to sponsor him on GitHub or something, because he's doing a heck of a job out here doing a lot of pull requests. And I think Will Stroll is kind of overseeing some of the management tasks on this project. So be sure to thank them, if nothing else, but sponsor them, when GitHub sponsors. But there was a release of 7.0.5 3 weeks ago, and I think there is a release, there was a release for 7.0.6 last week, and then there's a new RC for 7.0.7 out there now, and RC2, so 2 days ago. So they're making some nice
and if you refresh the page,
is there really a release?
I don't know, I'm just kidding.
Oh yeah.
But there's been a lot of releases.
Good one, Daniel. Yeah, I mean, you may be saying, well, I mean, what does that have to do with me? You may not use this module on your sites or anything like that, but one of the things, one of the benefits that all these great changes are making here is that that directly reflects out on the community site out here. So the forums is being run by that module. So it's nice to see some of those new features and enhancements that are being made there. And I think they've got some effort going on to kind of modernize it as well. Not privy to all the things they've got kind of planned for that, but it's nice to see the progress there. Okay, well, I think I've talked enough about announcements. Is there anything that I didn't point out that you're like, oh, this is going on, everybody needs to know about this?
Would you like to bring up for a moment the EasyDNN updates with the
good.
GPT integration? That could be a good both announcement of something that was pretty interesting that got released community-wise, but then is also going to come visit us in a future SoFri meeting. We reached out to the folks from EasyDNN and invited them to come present with us that they have a new release version of EasyDNN News that has been already released with a ChatGPT integration. And that ChatGPT integration allows you to build the starter for articles and elements, and then incorporate elements from OpenAI, including ChatGPT content, summaries, and writing, as well as images generated by DALL-E. And with the recent DNN Summit, the artwork for the Yeti and for several of those things was something that I created, and DALL-E had a fantastic, fun time doing that. And the idea of using these types of things going forward to generate quirky artwork, photorealistic photos as thumbnails and graphics in articles can be a really interesting thing to consider doing from a news or an article direction first, instead of from a marketing or graphics direction first. So if you use EasyDNN products and EasyDNN News, you might want to go check that out, and then look forward here in I believe June. We will have them coming to visit us on that third Thursday to talk about this module and what they're getting into. They also have some further updates that they think will be done by the time they go to DNN Connect. So there may be some other new news that's being released soon for EasyDNN News.
It's a really good application for this, especially as getting a good starting point for some of the articles and imagery that you want to use on these articles. It's that's pretty powerful there. I'm sure that'll only will improve in the future. So really cool to see them embracing that. Okay, I'm going to stop my share now, and what we'll go into at this point is a bit of a round robin and sharing some various tools and utilities that some of us have found helpful. Again, if it's something that you're interested in sharing and we're not talking about it, go ahead and post it into the chat, and I'll be kind of monitoring that as others are sharing. But I think, Ryan, you're going to kick us off on this.
Yep, glad to. Let me start by sharing my screen, and we'll dive into the first item that I have that I've prepared, would like to share with everyone, and then we'll trade back around, like you said, pass it off to you, to Daniel. I've got a second one to come back around to, but let's get everybody covered first with the items they're going to share. So the idea for today's meeting is to share useful DNN tools and utilities. It's a topic that we share at user group meetings, at conferences when we go to them, and over the years, that toolbox, those essential tools that I install on every single DNN instance, they've both stayed the same and they've slightly modified over time. And this is a good example of one. The first thing I wanted to show is a find and replace, or a search and replace type of utility. There have been several of those over time that we've used as modules. We've also done them just straight in the database and done that work directly in the database. But if there's a tool that we can use within the interface and it's easier for us to get in, or different members of our team maybe who don't always have direct database access, to do this kind of search, or with trepidation, search and replace, then it's something that we love having in a tool. So here, this is a client site that we're working on right now that is for a coin collecting enthusiast club. There's a bunch of different coins that are in a series of things that are Liberty seeded. This site has HTML modules. This site has Xmod Pro custom content that we've built and delivered as structured content solutions. This also uses another news article module that we still use today that's from DNN. So there's a lot of different modules in place in this website. And if we need to do a find and replace across the board, it's not just the HTML module that's going to need a find and replace kind of lookup. So what we're showing off today here is the Evotiva DNN search and replace. Several wonderful things to share and discuss about the Evotiva search and replace. And I was about to say the word module, but that's the point, is it's not a module. It is a persona bar utility at this point. So this is from Evotiva. They are the same folks that do Evotiva backup, which is another must-have in our toolbox type of item that we install on almost every DNN instance. But today we're showing off here their search and replace tool. They've had a couple of different versions over time, but this 4.0 version is built to be a persona bar utility, to be an item that lives inside of the persona bar instead of a module that appears on your page. I'll also come back to and mention in a moment, but the source is available in GitHub so that you can both contribute to it and help, but you can also go through this source code, and I'll come back to that in just a second. So what's important about this search and replace module that is better than some of the previous ones we've used in the past? There have been a few different ones. There was an F4 named one several years back. Did a very, very good job. This one does similar types of work, but there are a few things that I want to show off. To begin with, in the configuration tab, you can begin by searching the default modules, the database tables for default modules that they set up, which you may want to use in a find and replace. So we've obviously got the HTML module, but then we can also go against module settings, and we can go against tab module settings. Maybe there are things that you have in the module settings, titles, and types of things that you have in for items on a page. The tabs URL is there. The URLs table is there. These are all key tables that at one point in time or another, we have to do a search through, or we have to do a find and replace type of action on. But there's an ability for you to click available targets. And this is a listing of every database table in the DNN database, which is fantastic. It means that you can add in as many other modules and directly target the data columns that you want to. So for instance, I mentioned there's an article module in here that's ZLDNN. So if I filter for ZLDNN, then I've got all of the tables here. Now we've got several pages of this, but I can come to the primary article database table, and I can go to the content. That's the primary body content field. I can come to this description. That is the short description. I can come to the title, which is the name of the article. But I also know that they've got keyword tags and SEO titles that I also want to be able to do a find and replace within. So once I click add checked, it confirms. A little growl lets me know that it's been added. Now under selected targets, I have many more database tables that have been added to the search. So it's very configurable. If you're doing structured content work where you have your own database tables, then this tool can be used to search your database tables and an article module and the HTML module. Very flexible from that standpoint. So once we're here, it's pretty straightforward. In this particular site, Gobrek is the name here that might get typed wrong or might get spelled wrong. So if I'm going to do an example here, and I want to look for the proper spelling of the name Gobrek here, I'm not going to replace it with anything. I'm leaving that alone right now, and I'm just doing a search. At this point, when I do a search, it's going to bring me back the results in a compartmentalized group to let me know which tables it's pulling those records out of. So as far as the body content, it's 5 times, 5 locations. The description content, 2. The title of articles, 16 instances. And if I go into them, then I'm able to see the instances for where these are. If I was going to build enhancements into this, I might make it that if I clicked these, I could go to those pages or go to that content. But that takes a little bit more understanding of all the different possible ways you can, connect to content. But as it is, it works for me because it shows me very quickly a listing of all of the different instances of these words in whatever table they existed in. And that's whether they were within HTML content or, database table content. So then if I'm doing a find and replace, it certainly does allow me to do a find and replace. I tell clients often that it's very rare that I actually want to do more than just finding all my instances and correcting them. But if I am going to do a replace action, I'm often testing it. I'm often targeting the one specific table that I want to target so that I don't accidentally also target something that I didn't realize in an HTML module or elsewhere in the URLs database table, tabs table. So I'll try and make it as limited and restricted as I can. And I'll often do a database backup before I perform a find and replace. That way I've got something I can roll back to. But as far as a first utility and tool, I've had different find and replace or search and replace modules over time. This is the most configurable, easiest to use one that I've had in a long time. The fact that it is also now as a persona bar element makes me even happier because then if I have content editors who aren't admin or host, there's really no way they can trip across it unless they have access to the persona bar. So I'm very happy about that. The last thing I'll mention is that because this is an installer item that installs, gives us this functionality, and it also brings this in as a persona bar module, persona bar item. It's something that may be interesting to developers who are working on their own utilities and tools that they want to have go in as a persona bar element instead of going in as a traditional module on the page. Then you're able to go to the source code there, take a look at how the folks from Evotiva have managed that and how the installer process is for those types of items. So it's a good way for you to take a look at someone who's done it and done it well, and then model that or do differently as you need to.
And Ryan, one of the notes I had about this one was like, when you go to do it, it is actually quite good at previewing essentially to you what your change will be so that you, it's not a, I click this button and it automatically goes do it. Now, I think you can configure it to do that, but I would recommend not doing that and just doing that, but it's really powerful.
I haven't taken a look at the chat. Were there any questions about this or comments? Otherwise, I'd say we're ready to pass on to the next item.
Daniel was mentioned that he was thinking it was HTML module based only or whatever, but yeah, it's quite powerful. Now
Yeah,
there is one of the things that I can't remember if you mentioned this at the beginning, Ryan, but like you're showing the persona bar option one, but they do have a standalone module, and it's a little confusing, but it's the V1 is the standalone, kind of the old, it's an ASPX page, that'll sit there and you can use that as well.
The V2 version is that way still. So the V2 version is a standalone module, and you do need DNN 8 as the minimum to install version 2, and that is a standalone.
Ah, okay.
But of course, you need to understand how the DNN data is organized and how the database is structured. Otherwise, it's a little bit tricky to understand what you're doing, and always be clear that you might cause inconsistencies if you edit the wrong column. So be a little bit
very much so.
So
use with extreme caution, and always back up everything first so that you'll sleep better at night.
Wise words.
Yep. Cool. Thanks, Ryan. That's a good one.
All right.
Y'all be careful with this one.
You should edit text columns only. Try to avoid editing number or numeric columns, because then you could really run into issues with foreign constraints and so on.
Yeah, and even that's a good point, Sebastian. Even dealing with, like, if you're changing HTML module content across the site or something, remember that it's stored in the database as decoded or encoded. Sorry.
Yes.
So if you have a rich text that you're editing, edit it accordingly in that way so that it understands it.
I think it's a pro tool. You have this encoding option, but you need to understand whether it is or not, and you need to understand how the data is organized. So it's a tool for pros. It's not really a tool for end users, I would say.
Yes. Don't tell your clients it exists.
And that's one of the reasons why I like it being in the persona bar. If it is not available to anyone but admin and host, and I'm giving people roles from a structured content perspective, and they are never DNN admin, then I'm much more safe. They can't accidentally find it or place it onto a page.
But I have a lot of clients which are granted admin permissions, but I wouldn't grant them access to this tool.
Cool.
So David, then you're next.
I think Daniel's going to share next. You ready, Daniel?
Sure.
Awesome.
Is it working?
It is.
Yes.
Okay. So one of the tools I use.
Picture, yes.
Who's that guy? So one of the tools I use, so I do a lot of development and maintaining sites and stuff, and sometimes you face a problem and you spend quite some time writing a little script or something to fix the problem. So I should note that somewhere, and for the next time I have this problem, so I use a lot gists. So everybody here has a GitHub account. You can save gists here for a quick way to keep code notes or any type of notes in your repository, and they are kind of like a repository. So if you work with someone like David has forked a lot of my little snippets and stuff, so I saved stuff here, and in here I have a couple of tricks, so which are not really tricks, but instead of Googling how do I set up to enforce HTTPS at IIS level in my web config, well, I save a snippet for it. So anytime I set up a new site, I just come to my gists, copy that, put that in my web config, and I'm good to go.
Daniel, why do you need that? Because that's included in DNN.
There are different ways to do it.
Yeah,
there are different ways to do that.
Yeah, it's one way that I like to do it, because sometimes there's more than DNN and stuff. So like
it's beside DNN. Okay.
Yeah. So it's
wanted to be clear. For DNN, you don't need it. You just say enforce the SSL, and then it's good.
Yeah, but it's
in certain environments. Yes.
Yeah, it's one thing
not in all environments. Yeah.
Often have to do. So I saved it here. The next one I have saved here, I got into an issue on a multi-portal site that was like 30 portals, and okay, well, we can do all that in one portal. I don't know why many portals were created for this thing. And then I got into issues with mapping of users that were not mapped to the portal they need to end up with, and what a mess. So I spent quite some time trying to figure out how to fix that. And once I figured it out, let me save it here. So this is another use at your own risk thing. Like, you don't want to do this, but like in this situation, that was what I wanted to do. Take any user, bring it into this portal. So I save the SQL script here. Next time I need it, boom, it's there, it's available.
You lost me at
This,
cursor.
yes. And probably Sebastian can come here and improve this a lot, maybe.
Yeah.
But by the way, I would store it as a stored procedure. This way, you just call the stored procedure instead of running a SQL every time.
Yeah, yeah.
It might
It's
be
a one-off thing though, but yeah, it's not a bad idea. You can fork it and improve that. So this one, this one I have to use sometimes on my own little servers here and there, or on client servers where you don't really have a lot of control on installed software and this and that, but I want database backups, right? So this is a little SQL backup script that you can put as a command.
That file, yeah.
Yeah, or as a PowerShell script. And basically you just like give your SQL server name here, and it's going to back up all of the databases on that server one by one into the folder of your choice here. And what it's going to do also, once all the backups are done, it's going to, in that same folder, so you dedicate that folder to this purpose, and in that same folder, it's going to look at all the existing ones, and it's going to find the ones that are 5 days or older and delete them. And then what you can do in Windows is set up a Windows scheduled task that runs the script every day, every whatever frequency you want, and boom, you have a folder with like 5 days of backups of any database you have in SQL Server. So because I need that on some
installed, and you need to be aware that this should not be open to anyone except admins.
For what?
You need to be aware that this requires SQL CMD, and you need to be careful not to allow access to this tool for anyone except.
Oh yeah.
He's running it from the server, and that logged in user has to be an admin. And so if he's running it as a PowerShell or what have you, then it's running under his user. Or if he's putting it into Windows, your scheduler, then he's running it under a user he selects, but it has to have
In the scheduler. Yeah.
Yep.
This one is unrelated, but ultimately that might be something I might have a talk about, but that was my attempt at having my own GitHub runner instead of running on GitHub Cloud, which you can have a small server dedicated for that with a bunch of cores and memory, and you have your own GitHub runner that's super fast. It's not complete, so coming up. This one I use quite often when I need to develop a theme for an existing site, and I'm working on the menu. So I need to have the same menu structure at as the site where it's going to end up. And sometimes there's like 300 pages nested in different ways, and I want to make sure my menu system will work with that. So it's a DDR menu template, and you put basically a DDR menu on a test page, use that template, and it's going to output in the format that you need to paste in the DNN pages add multiple. So then you paste that on your local instance, save all pages, and boom, you have a menu structure that's exactly as the site that your team's going to end up with.
Sure.
So it's quite a useful little thing to have in the tool bags.
That is a very good one. I mean, we use that quite a bit whenever, especially like if a client's really, they're ditching what they currently have in an older version of DNN or something like that, you know, and they're wanting to just build net new on a new design and all this stuff. That does happen quite a bit. So we'll just drop this in a DDR module on the page, put this in there, and boom, there we've got our local development pages to quickly add and click.
Yeah, and it's useful. Client can't give you a backup of the site because it's very sensitive, or stuff like this. So GitHub, just use them. They're really cool to keep notes. ChatGPT, I'm sure everybody here has something to say about ChatGPT. I'm a subscriber, so I get to have ChatGPT 4, and it's way better than what I had before I had ChatGPT 4. I use it almost every day. It's not replacing a developer, but it's so great to bounce ideas off. Like you have no idea how to start something. You can just type it as you would explain a human or a rubber duck, and it's gonna come up with something that's at least a good starter, and you can customize. I also use it a lot for stuff that I would spend an hour searching on Google and Stack Overflow and YouTube and this and that, and it's giving me all kinds of wrong paths because it's an older version, because it's a newer version, and you have to work on something older, or it's like you're having a hard time finding what you need. What I love about ChatGPT is you can interact with it. So it's going to give you a solution. Well, I can do it this way because I'm on .NET Framework. I'm not on .NET Core. Oh, okay, sorry. Here's something on .NET Framework that's similar. Okay, I can't use this because that dependency version doesn't have that thing. Oh, okay, well, in this version, you have this, that. So it's really interactive, and I love it. And the third reason I love ChatGPT is to help me refactor. It's amazing at refactoring. So this is one example of an Angular thing that I was actually working with David on this thing, and it's good and it works and it's perfect, but there's a lot of ternaries here and the map there, and like if this then that, and if it's plural then I want to use ES, and like, well, that's kind of hard to read. How can you refactor this? And then it comes up with ideas, well, let's extract this into a method and this into a method, and now it's much easier to read because you have your actual template here. And if you're looking for other statuses, then other statuses is defined clearly here. And if you're looking like the job status names, is the logic is isolated here. So it's better. And then you can do well, clients needs to be clients. See, that's one thing it got wrong, and you can tell it. It's great, but you got that part wrong, and it's gonna adjust itself. It's very good at this back and forth thing. And then you can do funny stuff like, okay, do me the same, but like a pirate.
Yeah, scroll up to what you put there, Daniel.
Yeah.
What you
Just
said.
one more inch scrolled up. There you go. Oh, and can you make the message more like it comes from a pirate?
Yeah.
It actually did it.
Yeah, so you can do
Ahoy!
funny stuff.
You be sure you want to send a message in a bottle.
Yes. It's also excellent at regex, because everybody loves writing regex from scratch, right?
I love regex.
Oh,
Hey,
yeah,
Daniel,
I know.
Daniel, before you switch to the next one there, this one was really fun because I was like, I spent hours writing this small, complicated code block, and finally got it working. And I'm like, this looks hideous. Daniel,
Yeah.
refactor this. And then he responded in like 2 seconds, or 2 minutes,
There.
and said, here, there. Where he messed up is he told me he put it in the ChatGPT. I almost thought he was really smart.
So yeah, regex, I also love it for regex because it's gonna write you can explain in human words what you want the regex to do. It's gonna give you the regex and explain it, and then if you start testing it and you see edge cases where it doesn't work, you can tell it, well, it doesn't work for this, oh, okay, let me adjust that. It's very good at this. In one instance here, I needed to change CSS class across the board, but you could have class equals the thing you're searching for, or you can have like 4 or 5 classes, and one of the strings in the class is the one you want to change or remove or something. So it's really good at doing these things. And like, it would have taken me 1 hour to go figure out this, right? So this is really good at it. It really finds just the class you're looking for. And yeah, so I use ChatGPT a lot. Next bag of tricks, I'm gonna like really.
Hey, Daniel, let's circle
Yes.
back on this one here just to
Yeah, sure.
get a little bit of variety in here, because I know this one's going to take a little bit longer than a second or two.
Absolutely.
just a reminder for anybody that joined late, if you do have something that you'd like to share, hey, I've used this great tool, you should know about it. Just post it in the chat and we'll try to work you in on this as well. Let me share one here real quick and I'll turn it back over to Ryan if I can get my screen shared. Oh, we don't want to see Daniel there completely, do we? Okay, hopefully you're seeing the screen. Okay, this
yes,
is,
I love this one.
This is one that, I mean, it's an oldie but a goodie kind of thing, and it's still valid today. Is one from our friends over at Iowa Computer Gurus, Mitch Sellers and his team. It's a module that you can install on a DNN site, and it will automatically, routinely, via scheduled jobs, be able to, clean up your database, truncate it, do scheduled jobs that would otherwise you may not have the tooling to do. So for instance, if you're in a hosting environment where you don't have access to the SQL server directly to be able to set up a maintenance plan or something to do routine maintenance on the database, like shrinking it or truncating the event logs, which is not as simple as it used to be, right, Bastian?
Just a note: be careful with shrinking database. It can be helpful, but it can be also counterproductive. So
yes,
you need to be aware of what you're doing.
Yes, of course. So you can install this module and very easily through the UI, be able to set up several different tasks that are built into it. One is shrinking database, and like Sebastian was saying, I mean, know what you're doing when you do these things. It's not something you just necessarily should turn on. But one of the things that we use it for is cleaning out the event logs or admin logs here.
The site log is not necessary any longer because it's not populated anymore in DNN 8 and 9. And clearing the admin log, if it's properly, if it's correctly configured, it shouldn't be necessary. But there are some cases where you should take care. That's right. But it's only the admin log. Sorry.
Yep, absolutely. So this one's really good for that kind of thing, just to, especially in certain hosting environments, like I was saying, where you don't have access to do some of these things, like, cleaning out the event logs, exceptions, and exception events. That's the one task that nice to use this solution, but easy to install, easy to configure. I don't have a site I can actually show the configuration, but it's pretty intuitive. You just put it on a admin only page and add that and configure it. You can set the retention level as well for these. So you can say, hey, I want to purge all events from 7 days back and keep the most recent 7 days. So it's a nice little tool. Freely available out here on GitHub, on the Iowa Computer Gurus. You can go to releases, grab the latest release if your DNN is compatible. This is for 8.0.4 and above, and you can get the install package there.
One of the other tables that until it got fixed later, we would clear out is the auth cookies. That was a table that was running and running and running without being cleared. So we used the Iowa Computer Gurus SQL Scheduled Jobs to do that. And I'll also throw out there that in addition to just running straight SQL queries, it will also run stored procedures, so you can get into doing some more complex things as well.
Yeah, that's a good point, because there's a few out of the box kind of things that you can do, but you can also extend that and do your own things with that. So
actually, it's a really good point. Some of the extra things that aren't out of the box, hotcakes, for instance, will keep records for 1 million years if you let it. So we have a variation that on hotcakes instance sites, we'll clear out the hotcakes analytics, the search query, old abandoned carts older than X number of months or a year. So there's all kinds of maintenance data work you can do if you if you think about using that right.
Cool. Ryan, what you got for us next?
And scheduler history is also a good.
Yes.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
The last one I had to share was the bulk user manager that we have migrated to working with. It's from Mandeeps. It is called Live Utilities. I think that we've got some other old school folks on like Joseph Craig and myself who started out long ago using P.H. Dobson's bulk user manager.
Oh,
and
yeah.
when that stopped being able to work in newer DNNs, we needed to find a way that we could easily, with a module that we could train end clients in, have them be able to do a bulk export of user data and to manipulate and manage that and then re-import. We could build those things manually, but Live Utilities, Mandeep's tool, does a great job of most of the features that we'd ever want to use. So we really don't look back to that old bulk user manager anymore with nostalgia because we have a good replacement here. So just to show off a couple of things about this, in this particular example site, there are a few thousand records of users. What you're able to do is load this up and then search for those users. If you need to log in as that user, then there is a button which does allow you to click to impersonate that user, and it works similar to features you've seen in other modules or other evoke related tasks where you can click and you're no longer logged in as yourself. It refreshes and you're now logged in as that user without needing to know or manipulate their username or password. So already that's one very nice feature about that if it's needed. But otherwise, you're able to import and export user records. If you're going to export user records, you can choose whether you're going to do the user accounts or you're going to export elements about your security roles. This can help you then migrate those to a new DNN instance as you need to. But if I choose user accounts, at this point, I have options for what I want to try to do. So I can say that I want to export users from a certain date range or last activity for a certain date range. If I leave it alone, it's just going to be a straight export of everyone. If there is an open clear text password, then I can say that I want to try and export that. Great. Do I want user profile properties, or do I just want the main user table? Let's say I do want user profile properties. Do I want any of the other things? Yes, I want their security roles. Let's put that into a string. And then at that point, when you export, depending on the amount of users you have in the site, it might take a while to run this as a job. So it creates its own little job that it's going to run through the DNN scheduler, and it's going to go through and process this. So at this point, while I've been talking, it started going through processing the 2,900 records. It's almost up to 2,100. It was 800 a second ago. Now it's done and it's complete, and I can download a CSV file that has in it all of these users and the information that I was asking for. I can then manipulate the information, for example, their user profile fields, their street address, their phone number, whatever things you've made in custom user profile fields. And at that point, I can perform an import and import back in again and update those particular users. We often use it to make kind of across the board updates to user information and allowing clients to be able to do that. But then we also will do it to populate a new site with a list of users. And so when you are doing an import, you make those same selections again, and you set some parameters for what you want it to do when it's importing those users. Are we only creating users? If they don't exist, create them. If they do exist, skip. Or are we updating and creating users? Therefore, these records, they're going to go in and it'll either do an update or it'll do a create. Or are we only updating users? We don't want to create any new users. If there's a new record in there that doesn't match, skip it. We can just update users. We've also used it to do both inactivation of users and full removal and deletion of users. And those two are also very helpful, very useful. So anyways, if you did say that you're going to come through and you're going to update users, then you choose a file. And at that point, you are selecting a file off of your hard drive. I'm kind of going to stop here actually because I didn't prep a dummy version of this. But once you select the file, then your next step is a mapping screen where you get to map which fields to which columns. If you've done it from an export, then it'll automatically map and allows you to save those mappings as well. So if you are doing it to some custom table that you are bringing in and you have a mapping to the DNN fields and you're going to be doing this regularly, you can also save that as a value to reload in the future. So you don't have to redo the mapping every time you're going to do this, this process. So as an overall utility, it's one that we have an enterprise license for because I use it again and again and again and again on websites where there's a lot of user content, and I want to be able to manage that user content, but I also want to be able to have the end client use that and manage that content. And I can trust them with this module because it's user friendly enough that a few trainings they can get it and they're using it as they need to. We have a few clients where the login as button is very useful to them, but often this is again for bulk user management rather than individual user management. So it's something that is not needed by everyone, but when it is, I love this tool from Mandeeps.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's a great one. Just a question, according to, does anyone know about user management modules for non-admins?
This module can be, this is a module on a page, so you can absolutely present this to non-administrators.
But I need a user management interactive, nice form, but able to be handled by non-admin users. That's the current problem with DNN, that only admins can edit user or can access user accounts. There was one from DNN Connect, but that is no longer maintained.
Yeah, fortunately, this one, you can present this to anyone you want to with user roles. So it's not individual user management, but it is bulk user management that can be made allowable to everyone.
Yeah, but I have users which are not technical savvy. They just want to edit one user with one property user profile property.
For that, we build it in custom.
That's an ongoing problem for us too. We've needed to assign user administration and page administration to non-administrators, and we do need a solution for that still, but not there yet.
We build that in structured content with Xmod Pro. At that point, we're building a user manager and giving custom fields that we allow them to edit and change. And haven't done one for tabs or pages in a long time. But users, we do that for pretty often.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Well, in the batter's box was Jeremy waiting to come up. So Jeremy has something to share.
Jeremy Ferris, let's go.
All right, so share button for screen.
Swing.
You guys can see stuff?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so I've been looking for a way to do this for a long time without spending money. There's a lot of pricey ones out there that let you do this type of thing. But this one is free and open source. And and you can configure each one of these as different apps and sizes. I'm not going to go all through the features, but just to show you, you're seeing your website in my configuration 4 different devices in once, and this one's even a 4K screen right here. We're 2560 by 1440, and I did that because I was
beautiful.
Okay, so the name of the app is Responsively, and it's open source. It's free. Here's the reason I've been playing with it lately as I was redoing our isotope display of our work. And so I was extremely proud of this, getting 7 columns on here. Let's let the rest of these load up. So now you can see what our work page looks like with 100-something project tiles on it, on mobile, an iPad vertical, normal 1440 by 900 MacBook Pro, which, by the way, is the bane of my existence. There's a lot of Mac clients who look at stuff at this awkward size of 1440, so we have to, I keep it on here to shut up 2 specific people. One of them is named Ralph. Anyhow, so it's pretty impressive seeing the old
Ralph.
Ralph knows who's he, and the other people in the room know who Ralph is. So right, yep. Brittany's giving me a thumbs up. So anyhow, I still like this old isotope module it's a JavaScript module from years ago. And when I redid these pages on the site, this was really helpful to get it working and looking good across all these different sizes. So just wanted you guys to know that there's a free tool out there that lets you do that now. And I bet each one of you went looking for something like this a few years ago, didn't find it, or found something that cost too much money. Now there's a free option, and I highly recommend it if you need this kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Can I ask
That's
a
it.
question?
Sure.
This,
I think you
this
just
Joe. I have been working and trying to test out mobile views, and golly, the name of the application for big bucks that allows you to display websites on actual devices through your browser. And one of the things that we found,
Browser Stack.
I'll say that again.
Browser Stack?
Yes, thank you. And what I found was that using the quote unquote responsive views in Chrome and Firefox did not always correspond to the behavior of actual devices.
Correct.
Have you done any comparison with this application to real devices?
This is going to give you mostly this is going to give you mostly the same type of thing. It's only doing the type of, it's basically using Chrome and doing this interactively, dev tools with the same thing you're talking about. So it's not going to be an improvement. This is not doing any level of device emulation. You're just seeing stuff with width parameters and height parameters controlled. And you are getting independent views. I can actually have an inspector open for this one separately of this one. I forgot to show you that. That's something I actually use pretty consistently. So, and you can compare side by side to see what's triggering over here. And you can watch things change, turn on hover. Anyhow, it's worth exploring. But no, it is not real device emulation in any way, shape, or form. And yes, even on my Pixel 6a here, I can do them side by side, and I will occasionally see slight differences.
Still, this looks
Because notice, I have this Pixel 6 Pro up here, and it's not always the same as what's actually on my phone.
This looks really helpful, though.
Yeah, I see it's cool. Also, you can take screenshots at different viewports. So if you're working on a theme or something, you want to send the client some examples, it's cool. Yeah.
There's lots of little things. You can disconnect the updating so that it stays on screen. There's all kinds of useful stuff in here. It's worth playing around. And, you know, I didn't get into it very far until I watched a video of some guy using it. And then I was like, holy crap, that's useful. So go find a video, watch it, try it for yourself. Anyhow, yeah. I didn't want to go into any depth here. Who's up next?
That's a Chrome extension, or what kind of module?
It's a standalone app.
Oh, it's a standalone app. It is obviously running in a Chrome app state, but it's a standalone app that you find and download. I'll post the link in the chat in just a minute. Oh, someone already did. Thanks, Aaron.
I'll share this real quick because it's in the same vein. I was going to get Daniel on deck there, but I'll share this real quick. This is one that we have found incredibly helpful for those of you that are working with other clients or even, other companies that you need feedback directly from them on something that you've done on a website. It's called marker.io, and it is fantastic. It's a little script that you can put in any site, and it allows the client to very quickly report their feedback, and it automatically gathers all the information that you would want to know as a developer.
David,
like
I don't think you're sharing the right thing.
Yeah, you're not sharing the right
codes.
screen, I believe.
Well, what was I sharing?
Outlook.
We were
Notepad.
reading your email.
Oh, dang. Well, that's good. There's nothing there sensitive, so not a big deal.
Just trying to be helpful.
Thank you for telling me 5 minutes after I started.
I tried, but I was muted.
Okay, are we seeing that now?
Marker.io, all right.
Okay, there we are. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this one's really good. Put a little snippet on your site, put it in there, and the client can put in their information, title, description, and report it as a bug or enhancement or something like that. And then what it'll do is it'll automatically take a screenshot of the page. It will collect all of the data, like what browser are you using, what operating system are you on, what viewport are you looking at it on, what device are you on. I mean, they could be on their mobile phone and it still works great. And it'll post into the system, and then you can very quickly punch through the list of feedback and address each issue and have conversation about that issue. And you get all this information, even the console, what the console was outputting at the time. So how many times do you have to ask, well, I mean, did you see any errors in the console or something? Well, it gives you all that information when they send their feedback. So really cool.
David, how do you integrate it for clients in websites? Is it something that you put in during early development and then you remove it later? Is it something that you put in as an admin for, an administrator role, so that if they log in with that role, it's available to them, but not to the public?
Yeah, typically you'll have a staging site, while you're under development that maybe only they can see, or it's password protected or something like that. And then you just put the widget in there, and then just don't forget to remove it before you go live. Not the end of the world, but I mean, like, this is literally what it does. So you'll do a send seed feedback, and it's going to automatically take a screenshot of what I was looking at, exactly where I was at on the page. And I can put text in here, so the client, giving feedback, they can do something like this. They can say, this area right here is what that's a bad one, but and then put text in white space or whatever, whatever. And it'll actually, then you put your title and description. When you send it, it sends all the information and so forth. So fantastic.
Does it integrate with Teamwork?
It can, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. So that's a good one. And the pricing's not too bad. It's pretty straightforward. If you're interested in that, you can get away with, like, depending on how many people you need to be able to have access to it, you can usually get away with the starter package for this. So not bad at all.
Very nice.
Okay, Daniel, I think you're up. And please do share some confidential information when you share. That would be awesome. Make me feel a little better.
Share screen. Let me try and share the right screen.
So my problem is
you
I've
see my Outlook?
6 monitors over here, so it's easy to pick the wrong one.
So when you mentioned the tool you just mentioned, which I forgot the name.
Oh, this is a good one.
Yeah, the name was similar to Mockaroo. Just forgot the name, but yeah, I use this a lot. So when you need to generate random SQL data for some reason, like you are working on some custom module, but you don't have the real data because there's sensitive info and stuff, this site is amazing, mockaroo.com. and I put the link in the chat, so maybe it ends up in the meeting notes and stuff. But basically, it allows you to like, okay, I want an ID that's going to be a row number, and that's required. So give me no blanks. I want a first name, a last name, an email. Everything is there. Let's say you need something else, like an example for brand names, let's say. So you can add another field, and let's call it brand name. You can change all the field names, by the way, and delete them. And I want this to be, that's good. Okay,
Sure,
brand names of drugs. That's good sample data, right? If you need some body of, like, I don't know, the description, and this one should be like a couple paragraphs. So you can search in here paragraphs. Okay, that's what I want in here. And give me at least one, maximum 5. And let's make 20% of them have no value, let's say. And so on and so forth. So all these things here, you have a bunch of, let me clear the filters, but you can have like sample first names and last names and first name, last name. You can do functions to combine this and that. Airport region codes, postal codes. There's a bunch of stuff that like existing city names and stuff. And then you can tell it, well, I want to test performance of my thing. So give me like 10,000 rows or whatever, you know, let's keep it at 1,000 here. And I can get it in different formats. So if your thing you're doing is database, yeah, give me SQL to create that table. And the table name is mock data, but you can give it any name of an existing table if you just want to fill it with records. And you can optionally create the table or not, depending if you want to append to an existing one. And yeah, generate data, bing, boom, you get an SQL script, you run that in SQL, and that's a great way to test. Let's say you're building a brand new module and you have 10 records, but you need 10,000 to test performance. Boom, you get your SQL script and run that. I'm not going to open it because, yeah, that's one thing. That's pretty cool.
I can't believe it doesn't support too sexy for automatic output.
It supports JSON though, Jeremy. You're
JSON,
good.
yeah. Yeah, JSON. If you're working on some front end and you would need a big piece of JSON, yeah.
Daniel, why don't you go ahead and share the module one that you had started to share earlier? Keep them flopping around.
So I'm gonna put the link also in the chat if that's of interest to anybody. So I hate redoing the same things. And every time I start a greenfield project, right, brand new module, there's a lot of stuff involved in getting from 0 to a working state. So I always kind of put that in a template. And every new greenfield project, well, I'd like to have unit tests. So I'm not going to do it only on this thing. I'm going to add this into my template because I find it easier to have a template that has everything and you remove what you don't want than to build a template that's very minimal and you have to add pieces. So this is my go-to. It's not made if you want to build projects that are cross versions in DNN, because I always, every time I start a new greenfield project, I update everything to the latest DNN version, because that's my starter for new projects. I never do new projects on old sites. So it's not also a starter for someone who's new, because it's an advanced template. So it uses Web API, it uses Stencil, it uses async, it uses entity framework, it uses unit tests. There's support for docfx documentation that's based on your code comments. It uses Swagger, which is really, really awesome, because if you build a web API, you have some shape of the response of your web API, that the JSON that it returns. Well, this will automatically on each build create TypeScript clients to communicate with your web API with typings, and they're in sync with your web API. So if I go back and change a feature and well, I need to add a last name to this entity, I build and boom, it exists in the front end also. with strong types. This would be like an hour presentation to go into details, but if you're interested, it's in the Visual Studio Marketplace. I am about before DNN Connect. I want to revamp this a little bit and bring it up to current dependencies and migrate it to 9.11.2 dependencies and stuff. That's coming up. And it uses DNN Elements. A lot of us already know them. We are working on fixing the storybook, which is a better presentation than what I'm showing you here. That's going to be on a public site, and you can actually interact with those components as a user without having to write any code. But this is kind of the developer page to quickly develop stuff. But we have their HTML custom elements, so you can use them as is without any framework, or in any framework of your choice, including React, Angular, Vue, whatever framework, because they're pure. We are also improving right now to have React wrappers over those components, so you can use them even simpler if you have a React project. But you don't have to. You can consume them as is. You just have to adjust a couple things because of the way React works, and those wrappers will simplify it for those who want to use them on React. But there's very useful stuff that hopefully will replace some of the old DNN components we had that were web forms only, like a modal, permission grid, confirmation buttons. So this is like super simple. You just put the button there and you say it's a confirmable, and you have a yes, no automatically. And we have 3-state checkboxes that are very useful. That modal was there. We have collapsible panels that are aware of adding or removing stuff. So that flashing there is on purpose. It adjusts to its own content. They're nestable. We have search boxes, color pickers that are the same no matter what browser you're on, or if you're in a browser that doesn't have its own color picker. That will be how in DNN 10 the CSS variables will be adjusted. So there will be a UI, and you can set your brand colors, and that's just CSS variables available in the environment. We have icons, we have toggles, we have, well, that one is locked. We have toggles. This was kind of an advanced one. So a drop zone where you can drop files for uploads. It's actually used in the resource manager. Well, you can use it in your own modules. And we have an image cropper. This one is really, really cool for module developers because you can drop an image here. It does not upload it. It just loads it up in the browser. You can crop it to a certain ratio and size. It's going to compress it to a certain JPEG compression level, and it uploads only the result of that. So your big image doesn't even touch your server. It's a pretty cool one. We have tabs. There's improvement here. We want to ultimately make this tab accordions so that you can have the same content displayed as tabs or accordions, depending on the viewport, which would be really useful for modules. We have nestable tree views that support anything. So everything here is a placeholder. So you can put an icon, you can put a checkbox, you can put an image, you can put a collapser, you can put links, you can put a dropdown. That's a really nicely reusable component for tree views. This is also used in the resource manager. So a splitter, right, that can be collapsed. We can see this potentially at some point being used to the persona bar left menu that you could collapse and expand instead of being always there. We have, this is really nice one also. If you have a list of buttons or links or whatever content you have, and you want them to go into a little drop down if they don't fit. So if I resize my screen here, it shows whatever fits. Whatever doesn't fit, you get them as extras. And that's live. That doesn't depend on the viewport. That depends on whatever container it's in. And we have Monaco Editor for code editing. That is now a web component, and you can drop Monaco Editor on your module, on a page, on whatever. Supports HTML with one line of code.
Nice.
And that's in my toolbox for any module development I do.
That's the question. If I have a node module based on Telerik controls or the old DNN controls, I need to update it. Is there any advice how to use to replace with this one, or is there any guidance on this?
So this is a front-end solution only. So it's not, there's no web forms wrappers. However, if you have a web forms control, it's HTML, so you can put that control there. You're gonna have to wire up the events. So if we have, let's say, a date picker and you wanna do something when it's picked, well, then you have to write the JavaScript to handle that event and do some sort of post back.
Okay, thank you.
So they can be used in web forms, but they don't have web forms events wired up.
Sebastian, Daniel will be presenting more
Yes.
detail on some of this at DNN Connect. So
Great.
might be interested in joining that.
Thank you.
Awesome. Let's see. Ryan, I've got a ton of stuff on my list, but really none of it's super important. We could probably do this for hours and hours and hours. I'm sure everybody has tons of tools and stuff. Did you have anything that you're like, oh, I've got to share this on your list?
I've covered my main two that I wanted to share with folks today, and I've picked up two probably from each of you of I'm going to use this right now. So I'm pretty happy on both the sharing and receiving sides of things.
Yeah.
How about everyone else in the chat and online? Does anyone have any other suggestions or questions? Otherwise, we're getting close to wrap up.
I had a few random ones on my list here that I'll just mention without sharing anything, but I had just in general, I find Git and GitHub, very useful as a tool. GitHub sponsors to be able to sponsor people, in the community. Let's see, I got GitHub Actions, which is a great way to automate things in your Git environment or GitHub environment out there. That's a really good one. Then of course, tools like Discord and Slack and the DNN forums. Those are great tools that are generic and be able to find out about other things and help other people. I had two locally installable tools that I use still quite a bit. One, I mean, a lot of times I use Visual Studio Code to do these compares between files, but in some situations I still use WinMerge or Beyond Compare.
Absolutely.
A similar tool. Those are great when especially if you're on a server and you don't really have a development environment, you're really just wanting to compare some files really quickly and see what the difference is between those and handle those accordingly. That's a good one. And then the other one I had on my list was, what is it called, Daniel? Some
nvQuickSite.
No, the semantic.
Yes.
Oh yeah, those are great tools too.
I use it.
Yeah. What's the one for semantic version?
Git version?
Yeah, no, the tool that you use when you have a merge conflict that's really complicated. And
semantic merge.
Thank you, semantic merge. Yeah, that's a good one. If you're doing a lot of Git stuff and need more intelligent comparing and dealing with merge conflicts and so forth.
I've got one to bring on screen for just a second, and I won't keep anyone for too very much longer. But you mentioned something about tools, and it kind of reminded me of a collection of things that I'll mention just as general. We've had in some conversations recently discussions about the ASP.NET image resizer, image resizing.net, the image resizer version or image flow version of it. And so we talked recently about how fantastic this tool is, included in your projects or included in your DNN instance one way or another. It's something that can be very useful for you to allow people to upload large versions of images to servers. The image resizer can allow you to store those images on AWS or on a cloud location, and with a virtual directory, tell DNN that that's actually part of the DNN structure so that it can be still within your website and look as though it's hosted on your server, but it's actually out on AWS for the large volume of file size of things. But there are plenty of times when clients will pass us images or the designer will pass us images. And I just need to do a quick compression. So as a website tool, back when it was still called Optimizilla, I used Optimizilla for quite a long time, and it does allow you to drag up and drop. So it's imagecompressor.com. If I'm doing 1 or 3 or 5 of something at a time to compress, this is a great tool. To do that, you end up dropping in your large file, and then it will allow you to increase or decrease the quality of that PNG or that JPEG image or that GIF. If it's a PNG, then the PNG is stored with 256 colors, but it's not using all 256. If you drop that down to 128 or 64, you still have a pretty sharp, good-looking picture, and you've compressed the file size of it a lot. So if you're doing things with Google where Google PageSpeed or other tools are telling you you haven't compressed your images within an inch of their life, then the image compressor, is a good way to do that manually for a small amount of files. But when you were mentioning tools, David, it reminded me of NX Powerlight. This is a desktop application that you're nodding. Have you used this before?
I have not seen that in ages, but I remember this one. Yeah,
I still use it. I have a few sites, magazine and article content sites, where the client uploads hundreds and hundreds of megs of images and PowerPoint files and just tons of content that they post up, and it goes on to the server location, and that grows and that grows and that grows. And the images they upload are not compressed within an inch of their life and need some work. So with one license where you're using it as your administrator, you can have this on a few different servers and can run it either on a schedule or on a manual, process to scan through your DNN instance, let's say, and hit every single file it can, and it will compress those. It'll take PDFs and it'll drop the file size down by, down to a quarter of their file size, depending on how big and bad the images are that people put into PDF files. It'll take all of the JPEGs and PNGs and it'll compress them down very much like Image Compressor does, and compress them as small as they can be. So I've had projects where over time the site will start to report on Google PageSpeed that you should consider compressing the images, and we'll run the NX Powerlight, and then on the next scan it doesn't complain or bark about that anymore.
Right.
So
Don't you charge your clients by gigabytes stored?
Yeah, it solves the problem where they say, why is my site running so slow? And we're like, well,
you have a 20 meg image on your homepage, and it's an
we can do
an
expertise.
So there you go, David. I thought of that when you added one of those tools into the mix. So that was my third one there.
That's a good one. I couldn't for the life of me remember it, but there was a tool we used to use. I just have nightmares back with the user spamming debacle that we had,
Right.
in DNN at some point, where you needed to really search files on the server. And it was an amazing tool for searching things better than Windows will do, with especially if you don't have the indexer running on the server. And I can't remember what it was called, but it was
We've done that a
fantastic.
few times. Yeah.
I think we compared notes on that one in a previous
Yeah, it might have.
meetup.
And I'm gonna say that there's still some things where, like, by knee-jerk reaction, I'll think about searching like that, and I'll go, man, Front Page had an excellent way for you to scan a folder.
Just in case anyone else than David, that's a 15-second one. No, it wasn't this one that you didn't know about. I'm sorry, I'm confusing things. Multiple paste, which is like built into Windows.
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah, so if you copy A, copy B, copy C, if instead of doing Control V, you do Windows V, it brings up all your recently copied things. So you can copy a lot of stuff and then change Windows and go paste the second thing I copied or the first thing I copied. It's really, really useful.
One of the first things I install when I get a new Windows machine, I will turn that on. Yep.
I had no clue it even existed, and Daniel changed my life about a year ago when he showed it to me. It's like, oh my gosh, where have you been all my life?
And it was mentioned on chat only, but Windows PowerToys. Not going to go into details because it brings a lot of stuff, but it's a cool thing to look at.
Definitely.
I didn't know that still existed. I'll go
Oh
look.
yeah, and it's much
It's
better
been
than it used to be.
recreated. It's not still existing. It has been recreated by lots of volunteers and some kinds of the development team of Microsoft.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's really nice. I
probably
just
been 8-10
rediscovered
years
it
since I
after
listened to that
a
last.
5-year app, and yep, they did a
Wow.
nice
It's
job.
not
Check
the
it out.
old one. It's totally new, newly built up.
Completely new.
Last 3 years.
Okay, on it.
Yeah,
Well,
it
this has
helps with
been-
logged files, multiple rename, quickly search better than the start menu. So, there's like 20 tools in there. It's really useful.
Customizing your
Multi-rename
window
right there.
layout is really
Done.
nice because there's only so many
And
options
if you
you
don't have
in
enough
Windows.
color pickers in your life, there's one more.
Yes.
Well, this has been very good, everybody. This is a good thing. We should probably plan to do this at least once a year or so, and compare new tools.
I think so. Yeah, we'll make it an anniversary thing. We'll do it every April. Sounds good.
That sounds really good. Thanks for everybody that shared, and hopefully for those that were watching or here live or watching afterwards, hopefully you'll find some of these tools useful. What I will try to do is, and Ryan, I guess you'll probably do this on the site too, but I will I'll try to compile everything from the chat messages, that was a link to somewhere or mention of some tool. I'll try to put it into the YouTube description for the video, and Ryan probably try to put that in when he posts that on the southernfriedDNN.com.
Yep.
Put those in there as well. So I'll pass those over to you. We appreciate everybody joining. Hope you have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll end the recording now. Take care.
Bye.